He spared the alien queen. Her reward changed everything. Captain Marcus Chen had seen enough death for 10 lifetimes. The smoking ruins of New Geneva stretched before him, buildings reduced to twisted metal and ash. The Zilithian invasion force had swept through the outer colonies like a plague, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. For 3 years, humanity had fought back against the insectoid aliens, and for 3 years, they had been losing. The war had started when the Zilithians emerged from the deep void, their massive hive ships blotting out the stars. They came without warning, without demands, without mercy. Entire worlds fell within days as their biomechanical warriors swarmed across human settlements. The aliens seemed unstoppable, their technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. Marcus gripped his plasma rifle tighter as he led his squad through the rubble-strewn streets. Intelligence reported that the Zilithian command structure was housed in the old city hall, a massive building that had somehow survived the initial bombardment. If they could capture or eliminate the alien leadership on this world, it might buy Earth's forces enough time to regroup. The building loomed ahead, its classical architecture a stark contrast to the organic flowing designs the Zilithians preferred. Strange pulsing lights emanated from within, casting eerie shadows across the debris-filled plaza. Marcus signaled his team to spread out, their powered armor humming quietly as they advanced. The first Zilithian warrior appeared around the corner, its 4 arms wielding energy weapons that crackled with alien power. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, its chitinous exoskeleton gleaming like polished obsidian. Multiple eyes tracked the approaching humans with predatory intelligence. Marcus fired first, his plasma bolt catching the alien center mass. The creature stumbled but didn't fall, its armor absorbing most of the impact. Return fire scorched the air around the human squad as they dove for cover behind fallen concrete barriers. The firefight was brutal and swift. Marcus had trained his people well, and they moved with practiced precision. Plasma bolts and energy beams crisscrossed the plaza as both sides sought advantage. The Zilithians were tough, but they were outnumbered. One by one, the alien defenders fell until only silence remained. Inside the building, the atmosphere was thick and humid, filled with the sweet, cloying scent of the Zilithian biotechnology. Organic conduits pulsed along the walls, carrying nutrients and information throughout their makeshift command center. Strange bioluminescent displays showed star maps and tactical data in scripts that hurt human eyes to look upon. They found her in what had once been the mayor's office. The Zilithian queen sat motionless on a throne of living coral, her massive form draped in flowing bio-silk. She was larger than the warriors, nearly 10 feet tall, with an elegant grace that belied her alien nature. Her carapace was a deep blue-green, shot through with veins of silver that pulsed with her heartbeat. Unlike the warriors, she bore no weapons. Her 4 arms were slender and delicate, ending in hands that seemed almost artistic in their design. Her head was crowned with a series of crystalline spikes that caught and refracted the bioluminescent light. Most striking were her eyes, large and multifaceted, but somehow expressing an intelligence that seemed almost human. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. This was it. The alien responsible for the deaths of billions. The monster who had ordered the destruction of entire worlds. All he had to do was pull the trigger, and humanity would have its revenge. But something made him hesitate. The queen made no move to defend herself, no call for help. She simply sat there, watching him with those alien eyes. There was no fear in her gaze, but there was something else. Resignation, sadness. It was impossible to read alien expressions, but Marcus found himself lowering his weapon slightly. Behind him, Sergeant Rodriguez whispered urgently, "Sir, what are you waiting for? Take the shot!" Marcus knew his sergeant was right. Every moment they delayed increased the chance that Zilithian reinforcements would arrive. The smart tactical decision was to eliminate the Queen immediately. But as he looked into those alien eyes, Marcus found himself thinking of his daughter, Sarah. She had been only 7 when the war started, full of curiosity about the universe and its wonders. What would Sarah think of him if she knew he had killed an unarmed prisoner? Even an alien one? The Queen spoke then, her voice a melodic combination of clicks, whistles, and harmonics that his translator struggled to convert. "You hesitate, human warrior. This is unexpected." Marcus kept his weapon trained on her, but didn't fire. "You're responsible for the deaths of billions of my people, as you are responsible for the deaths of millions of mine," the Queen replied, her translated words carrying an odd cadence. "War makes killers of us all." "We didn't start this war," Rodriguez growled from behind Marcus. "You came to our worlds uninvited." The Queen's head tilted slightly, a gesture that seemed almost human. "Did we? Or did we simply respond to what we perceived as a threat? Your species spreads across the stars like a virus, consuming resources, establishing colonies. We saw this expansion as aggression." Marcus felt his anger flare. "So you decided to commit genocide?" "As you now decide," the Queen said quietly. "I am unarmed, defeated. My fleet is destroyed, my warriors dead. You hold my life in your hands, human. What will you choose?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus could feel the weight of his squad's expectations, the pressure of 3 years of war and loss. Everything in his training, every instinct honed by months of combat, told him to pull the trigger. The aliens had shown no mercy to human civilians. Why should he show mercy to their leader? But something in the Queen's voice gave him pause. She wasn't pleading or begging. She was simply asking him to make a choice about what kind of person he wanted to be. Marcus thought again of Sarah, of the bedtime stories he used to tell her about brave heroes and noble quests. What kind of hero killed an unarmed prisoner? What kind of man did that make him? Slowly, Marcus lowered his weapon. "We're taking you prisoner." The relief in his squad was palpable, though Rodriguez muttered something about soft-hearted officers. They bound the Queen with energy restraints and began the long journey back to their extraction point. As they walked through the ruined city, the Queen spoke little, but Marcus found himself stealing glances at her. There was a dignity in the way she carried herself, even in defeat. It reminded him of the old stories about noble enemies, adversaries who could be respected even as they were fought. The evacuation shuttle arrived on schedule, its pilot reporting that Zilithian reinforcements were indeed approaching. As they lifted off from the planet's surface, Marcus watched through the viewport as alien ships appeared in the distance. They were too late to save their Queen. During the flight back to the human fleet, Marcus found himself sitting across from the Queen in the shuttle's small passenger compartment. The energy restraints hummed softly around her limbs, but she seemed more curious than concerned about her captivity. "Why?" she asked suddenly, her alien voice barely audible over the shuttle's engines. Marcus didn't pretend not to understand. "Because killing an unarmed prisoner isn't victory. It's just murder." The Queen studied him with those multifaceted eyes. "Your species is different than we believed." "Maybe yours is too," Marcus replied. When they reached the fleet, Admiral Sarah Morrison herself came aboard to inspect the prisoner. Marcus had served under Morrison for 2 years and had never seen her show anything but iron determination. But when she looked at the Zilithian Queen, something flickered in her expression. "So, this is the monster responsible for New Geneva," Morrison said, her voice hard as steel. "With respect, Admiral," Marcus said carefully, "she's a prisoner of war now. The Geneva Conventions still apply, even to alien combatants." Morrison's eyes snapped to his face. The Geneva Conventions, Captain. These creatures destroyed entire cities. They've shown no regard for human life whatsoever. Which is exactly why we need to be better than them, Marcus replied. If we abandon our principles now, what's the point of winning? The Admiral was silent for a long moment, studying both the human captain and the alien queen. Finally, she nodded slowly. Very well, Captain Chen. She's your prisoner, your responsibility. But I want to know everything she knows about Zilithian technology and tactics. As the Admiral left, Marcus realized the full weight of what he had taken on. The Queen was now his charge, his responsibility to protect and interrogate. But as he looked at her sitting calmly in the detention cell, he wondered if perhaps he had gained something more valuable than just a prisoner. The war was far from over, but for the first time in 3 years, Marcus felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was another way forward than endless bloodshed. The Queen had called his hesitation unexpected. Perhaps it was time for both species to start doing the unexpected. He spared the alien queen. Her reward changed everything. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus brought the Zilithian queen aboard the flagship Prometheus. What had started as routine prisoner interrogation had evolved into something unprecedented in the history of human-alien contact. The queen, who had revealed her name as Zarathis in the melodic Zilithian tongue, had begun sharing not just tactical information, but insights into her species' culture and motivations. The interrogation sessions took place in a specially modified compartment that could accommodate both human and Zilithian environmental needs. Marcus had insisted on conducting the interviews personally, much to the frustration of Admiral Morrison's intelligence officers. But something about their conversations had convinced him that traditional interrogation methods would be useless against someone like Zarathis. During their 4th session, Zarathis had made a revelation that changed everything Marcus thought he knew about the war. The Zilithians hadn't attacked humanity out of simple aggression or territorial expansion. They had been fleeing something far worse. "The Devourers came to our home systems 200 of your years ago," Zarathis explained, her translated voice carrying notes of ancient grief. "They consume not just worlds, but the very essence of life itself. Entire star systems reduced to cold, empty void. We fought them for 50 years before we realized the truth." Marcus leaned forward in his chair. "What truth?" "They were following the same expansion pattern your species uses, moving from system to system, establishing forward bases, consuming resources. We believed humanity was their vanguard force, preparing the way for the greater darkness to follow." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You thought we were working with these Devourers. Your expansion into the Outer Rim coincided perfectly with the Devourer advance. Your aggressive territorial claims, your rapid colonization of resource-rich worlds. From our perspective, it appeared you were clearing the way for something worse." Zarathis's head tilted in that almost human gesture of contemplation. "We attacked what we believed was the lesser threat to prepare for the greater one." Marcus felt a mixture of horror and understanding wash over him. 3 years of war, billions dead on both sides, all based on a tragic misunderstanding. "Why didn't you try to communicate with us? To explain? Would your species have believed us? Would you have trusted the word of aliens you had never encountered before?" Zarathis asked. "We saw your military buildup along the rim worlds, your increasingly aggressive expansion. Fear makes fools of us all, human Marcus." Over the following days, Marcus found himself spending more and more time with Zarathis, not just for intelligence gathering, but because their conversations had become genuinely fascinating. The Zilithian queen possessed a brilliant strategic mind and a perspective on galactic politics that humanity desperately needed. She explained how the Zilithian collective operated as a series of interconnected hive minds, each queen responsible for a specific aspect of their civilization. Zarathis herself was the war queen, bred and trained specifically for military leadership. But she was also something more, a bridge between the different hive minds who could see the bigger picture beyond individual conflicts. "Your species puzzles me," Zarathis admitted during one of their sessions. "Zilithians are born knowing our purpose, our role in the collective. But humans seem to choose their path through life. This Marcus who spares enemies, this is not what you were bred for?" Marcus chuckled. "No, I wasn't bred for anything specific. I chose to become a soldier to protect my family, my world. But I also chose to spare you because it felt like the right thing to do." Choice, Zarathis mused. A concept our philosophers have long debated. Perhaps this is why your species has survived so long despite your apparent chaotic nature. Their conversations were interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the ship. Marcus rushed to the bridge where Admiral Morrison stood grimly studying the tactical displays. The situation was worse than anything they had faced before. "Report," Marcus said as he approached the command station. "Long-range sensors have detected an unknown fleet approaching from the outer rim," Morrison said. "Massive ships, unlike anything in our databases or Zilithian records. They're moving through space in a way that defies our understanding of physics." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. "The Devourers." Morrison spun to face him. "How could you possibly know that?" Before Marcus could answer, Zarathis's voice came through the comm system. Despite being in a secured detention cell, she had somehow accessed the ship's communication network. "Admiral Morrison, you must listen to me. What approaches is not a fleet as your species understands it. The Devourers do not build ships. They are ships, living vessels that consume matter and energy to grow larger and more powerful." "How the hell is she accessing our communications?" Morrison demanded. "Zilithian biotechnology interfaces directly with electronic systems," Marcus explained quickly. "Admiral, we need to listen to her. She's fought these things before." Morrison's face was a mask of barely controlled fury, but she activated the comm. "Speak, alien." "The lead vessel will be what we call a harvester, perhaps 50 kilometers in length. Behind it will be Cedars, smaller craft that establish feeding stations on conquered worlds. They will not attempt communication. They do not negotiate. They simply consume." Zarathis's voice carried absolute certainty. "Your conventional weapons will be useless against them." The tactical officer looked up from his console, face pale. "Admiral, the lead contact is reading as 52 kilometers long. It's broadcasting some kind of energy field that's interfering with our sensors." Morrison closed her eyes for a moment, and Marcus could see her making the calculation. Fighting an unknown enemy with weapons that might be useless, or trusting the alien prisoner who had been their enemy just weeks before. "What do you recommend?" Morrison asked finally. "Evacuation," Zarathis replied immediately. "Your fleet is powerful by human standards, but insufficient to face even a single harvester. You must gather your people and flee deeper into the galaxy." "That's not an option," Morrison said firmly. "Earth's colonies are behind us. We can't let those things reach inhabited systems." "Then you need allies," Zarathis said. "The scattered remnants of my people, the survivors of other species the Devourers have displaced. There are techniques, weapons, strategies that can work against them. But not with what you currently possess." Marcus looked at Morrison, seeing the same desperate calculation in her eyes that he felt in his own mind. "Admiral, I request permission to bring Zarathis to the bridge for tactical consultation." "Absolutely not. She's a prisoner of war, Captain." "She's our only expert on the enemy we're about to face," Marcus countered. "And if what she's telling us is true, then we're all on the same side now." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of electronics and the distant vibration of the ship's engines. Every officer present knew they were facing a decision that could determine the survival of humanity itself. Finally, Morrison nodded grimly. "Bring her up. Full security escort. The moment she makes any suspicious move, she's back in the cell." 20 minutes later, Zarathis stood on the bridge of a human warship, her energy restraints replaced with a security detail of 6 Marines. The bridge crew stared at her with a mixture of fear and fascination. She was the first living alien most of them had ever seen. "The Harvester will attempt to establish what we call a consumption field around your largest vessels," Zarathis explained, studying the tactical displays with professional interest. "Once trapped within the field, your ships will be slowly dissolved and absorbed. The process takes approximately 30 minutes for a vessel of this size." "How do we fight them?" Morrison asked. "You don't fight them directly. You disrupt their feeding process, force them to expend more energy than they can absorb. Concentrated quantum resonance bursts at specific frequencies can interfere with their biomechanical systems." The bridge's science officer looked up excitedly. "We have quantum torpedo systems that might be adaptable." "Not torpedoes," Zarathis corrected. "Sustained beam weapons. The Devourers can adapt to single-impact weapons within moments. You need continuous pressure at rotating frequencies." Admiral Morrison was already moving, her command training taking over. "Engineering, I need a full analysis of our directed energy weapons. Science division, start working on frequency modulation protocols. Tactical, prepare firing solutions on the lead contact." As the bridge erupted into controlled activity, Marcus found himself standing next to Zarathis. "Why are you helping us?" he asked quietly. The alien queen turned those multifaceted eyes toward him. "Because you chose to spare me when you could have killed me. Because your species shows the same courage in the face of extinction that mine did. And because—" She paused, as if searching for the right words. "Because I begin to understand that perhaps our species are not so different after all." The Devourer fleet was still hours away, but Marcus could already feel the weight of the coming battle. Humanity was about to face its greatest test, and their survival might depend on the wisdom of the alien queen he had chosen to spare. As he watched Morrison coordinate the fleet's preparations, guided by Zarathis's tactical advice, Marcus realized that his decision to show mercy had already changed the course of the war in ways he never could have imagined. The real test would come when the shooting started. But for the first time since the conflict began, humans and Zilithians were fighting on the same side. Perhaps that would make all the difference. He spared the alien queen. Her reward changed everything. The Battle of the Outer Rim would be remembered as the day humanity learned it was not alone in the fight for survival. As the Devourer fleet approached, Admiral Morrison had made the difficult decision to trust an alien enemy turned ally. The modifications to their weapons systems were untested. The tactical coordination between human and Zilithian technology unprecedented. Zarathis stood at a specially adapted console on the Prometheus bridge, her 4 arms dancing across biomechanical interfaces that had been hastily integrated with human systems. The sight of a Zilithian queen working alongside human officers was surreal, but the approaching threat left no room for hesitation. "First contact in 30 minutes, the tactical officer reported. "The lead harvester is beginning to emit the consumption field." Through the main view screen, the Devourer vessel was a nightmare made manifest. It resembled no ship humanity had ever conceived, looking more like a massive organic creature than any constructed vessel. Tendrils of dark energy writhed around its hull, and smaller craft emerged from orifices along its sides like parasites leaving their host. "The Cedars will attempt to board your vessels," Zarathis warned, her translated voice cutting through the bridge's tense atmosphere. "They carry biomechanical viruses that can convert your technology into Devourer systems. Your security teams must be prepared for close-quarters combat against enemies that can adapt to your weapons in real time." Marcus checked his sidearm and the modified plasma rifle he had requisitioned from the armory. As head of security for the prisoner-turned-advisor, he would be leading the defense against any boarding actions. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was now protecting the alien he had captured just weeks before. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," came the fleet-wide announcement. "Today we face an enemy that threatens not just humanity, but all intelligent life in the galaxy. We fight alongside former enemies who have become allies in this greater struggle. Remember your training, trust your fellow officers, and show these creatures why humanity deserves to survive among the stars." The first exchange of fire lit up the void between the fleets. Human quantum beam weapons, modified according to Zilithian specifications, lanced out toward the Harvester. The alien vessel's response was immediate and terrifying. Streams of dark energy erupted from its surface, seeking human ships with predatory intelligence. "Direct hit on the destroyer Yamato," came the damage report. "They're reporting critical systems failures across all decks." "The Yamato is being consumed," Zarathis observed with clinical detachment. "The crew has perhaps 15 minutes before total conversion. You must evacuate them immediately." Morrison's face was granite as she issued orders for evacuation shuttles. Marcus watched the tactical display as the proud destroyer began to change, its hull taking on the organic appearance of Devourer technology. It was a horrifying transformation, like watching cancer spread through living tissue. But the modified human weapons were having an effect. The Harvester's consumption field flickered and wavered as quantum beams struck at rotating frequencies. Sections of its hull showed damage, and several of the cedar craft were destroyed by concentrated fire from the fleet's frigates. "It's working," the science officer reported with barely contained excitement. "The frequency modulation is disrupting their biomechanical systems. They can't adapt fast enough to counter the rotating wavelengths." Zarathis manipulated her console, and suddenly the main screen displayed a three-dimensional tactical map that showed the battle from a Zilithian perspective. Energy flows, consumption rates, and adaptation patterns were all visible in ways human sensors couldn't detect. "The Harvester is beginning to retreat," she announced. "But this is not victory. They are calling for reinforcements. Within hours, more Devourer fleets will arrive, larger ones." The temporary triumph on the bridge faded as the implications sank in. They had won a single battle, but the war was far from over. Humanity's fleet was damaged, their ammunition depleted, and the enemy now knew their capabilities. "Admiral," Zarathis continued, "there is something else you must know. The reason I have been so forthcoming with information, why I have helped you fight my species' greatest enemy." Morrison turned toward the alien queen, suspicion and exhaustion warring in her expression. "Speak." "My people have a concept called the recognition of potential. When we encounter another species that shows true courage, wisdom, and the capacity for growth, we are bound by ancient law to offer formal alliance." Zarathis's multifaceted eyes fixed on Marcus. Captain Chen's decision to spare an enemy in defeat demonstrated all three qualities. By Zilithian law, humanity has earned the right to full partnership. The bridge fell silent as the magnitude of this revelation settled over everyone present. Marcus felt the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. His choice to spare Zarathis hadn't just saved one life, it had potentially saved both species. "What does that mean exactly?" Morrison asked carefully. "It means access to the Zilithian Collective's full technological and military resources, bioship technology that can match the Devourers, quantum communication networks that span the galaxy. Most importantly, alliance with the other refugee species we have encountered in our flight from the Devourer advance." Zarathis manipulated her console again, and the main screen displayed a star map showing Devourer expansion over the past 2 centuries. But it also showed something else. Pockets of resistance, refugee fleets, and hidden bastions where displaced species had banded together. The Keth Mori crystal singers whose harmonic weapons can shatter devourer hulls. The Veltar plasma weavers, who understand energy manipulation beyond anything either of our species has achieved. The ancient Torgon, whose knowledge of space-time allows them to travel between dimensions. Each species was highlighted on the map as she spoke. All of them have been waiting for a catalyst, a species with the potential to unite them in common cause. Admiral Morrison stared at the display for a long moment. "And you believe humanity can be that catalyst?" "I believe Captain Chen already has been," Zarathis replied. "His choice to show mercy to an enemy, to seek understanding rather than simple vengeance, has already begun the process. But the offer of formal alliance must be made according to our customs." She turned to face Marcus directly, and something in her posture changed. This was no longer an informal conversation between prisoner and captor, but a moment of profound significance between two species. "Marcus Chen of the human collective, by the ancient laws of my people and the recognition of potential you have demonstrated, I, Zarathis, War Queen of the Third Zilithian Fleet, formally offer the bonds of alliance between our species. Do you accept this bond, with all its benefits and obligations?" Marcus looked around the bridge, seeing the faces of his fellow officers staring at him with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Admiral Morrison gave him a slight nod, acknowledging that this decision was beyond military protocol. "I accept," Marcus said simply. The moment he spoke, Zarathis reached into a concealed compartment of her biosuit and withdrew something that made several security officers reach for their weapons. It was a crystal formation about the size of a human fist, pulsing with internal light that seemed to respond to her heartbeat. "This is a queen's bond," she explained. "A living crystal grown over centuries in the heart of a Zilithian bioship. By accepting it, you become not just an ally, but a recognized member of the greater galactic community." Marcus took the crystal, feeling warmth spread through his hands as it made contact with his skin. For a moment, he could have sworn he felt something, a sense of connection, of belonging to something vast and ancient and wonderful. "The bond is made," Zarathis said formally. "What was broken by misunderstanding is now healed by choice. The war between our species is over. The greater war begins now." Over the following weeks, as the human fleet retreated to regroup and prepare for the larger battles to come, Marcus found himself serving as humanity's primary liaison with the growing alliance of refugee species. The crystal bond Zarathis had given him allowed for direct communication across vast distances, connecting him to a network of minds and perspectives he had never imagined possible. But perhaps the most significant change was in Zarathis herself. No longer a prisoner or even just an advisor, she had become something unprecedented in either species' history. A Zilithian queen who had chosen to permanently serve alongside another species. Her bioship, rescued by collective forces, now served as a mobile embassy where human and Zilithian crews worked side by side. The war against the Devourers would continue for years, spanning multiple star systems and requiring sacrifices from all the allied species. But it would end in victory, not just because of superior technology or tactics, but because beings who had once been enemies had chosen to become something greater than the sum of their parts. Marcus often thought about that moment in the ruined city hall when he had held Zarathis's life in his hands. At the time, it had seemed like a simple moral choice between mercy and vengeance. He had never imagined that single decision would reshape the destiny of two civilizations and forge alliances that would endure for millennia. The war was won not through the strength of weapons, but through the courage to choose understanding over hatred, hope over fear, and unity over division. In the end, that was the most human thing of all, the ability to reach across the vast darkness between species and choose to build bridges instead of walls. And it all began with one man's decision to spare an enemy who had become something far more precious: a friend.